In today's Mental Health Monday, we are talking about healing the healers. Joining us now to talk more about that is our friend Natalie Poole. So glad to have you here with us this morning. Folks who do heal often, have a big burden to carry. So how do we even begin to heal the healers?
Such a great topic that I don't think we talk about enough. We kind of call it occupational trauma. The other day, I actually had students in my practice, and we talked about this extensively, how during the pandemic, we focused a lot on the frontline workers, whether it was the nurses, the doctors, police officers, firefighters, teachers, and educators, and all the resilient work that they did in the community. But now as we've kind of moved past that part, we have gotten back to quote-unquote normal, and we forget about the healers and what they're experiencing. Even, for example, even newscasters, for example, when you're inundated with news all of the time, which may not always be positive. For example, this is election season, and whether you believe in this or that or this opponent versus the other, it's a lot of information to take in. So when you think about that, at some point, sometimes it just becomes extremely overwhelming. So being able to recognize not only yourself when you've had just about enough, but even if our community can actually be aware of what it can take for a person to actually carry not only physically, but the emotional burden of constantly looking after others and caring for others. Noticing things like irritability, noticing things like a lack of sleep, just feeling burned out and even numb can be signs that we need to kind of pull away. One thing that I find that people will always ask you, especially being in medicine, well, if I'm sick, what do I do about this?
Sure.
But oftentimes they never ask you about how you're doing. They may even text you and say, what are you doing? But I have one friend in particular who always asks the question, which startles me sometimes, how are you
doing? Right.
How are you feeling? And sometimes I read it and I go, I don't know, because I'm so busy asking the question to others that I rarely sometimes sit with myself and ask myself that question. So that's something I think is huge that we can do. We can ask those around us, how are you feeling, so that they can get in tune with their own emotions.
And it's so easy to forget, right?
Yeah.
Because we talk a lot about also like the sandwich generation,
Yes.
right? So people who unofficially you're taking care of little ones, but then you're also taking care of, aging parents. So how do you do that? How do you take a step back when you're so often in go mode, right? How do you do that so that you can care for yourself?
So I think there's a couple ways. I think one thing for sure is that we have to realize when we've had too much. I think sometimes we're so much in go mode that we don't even realize that we can step back. We have to give ourselves permission, but this is why I think those around us are also such a great component in allowing us to kind of giving us permission as well. Because when they say, hey, hun, I got this, or you know what, it's okay to take that mental health day for you. But even ourselves, looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, I'm finding that I'm snapping really quickly.
Sure.
I'm maybe fussing at the kids about a toy being on the floor, and that's minor. Or even with my aging parent, I understand that they're maybe suffering with dementia and they're not remembering things, but I'm extremely volatile. And that's not even my personality. So realizing signs that, I need to pull back, giving ourselves permission to pull back. And here's something that I find very interesting in therapy. Realizing what it takes for you to find joy in your life. Sometimes we're so often on the go, we forgot what we like.
Absolutely, and joy really takes a back seat,
It does.
right?
It does.
So how do you find, those simpler things that do bring you joy?
So gratitude is huge, really remembering the very basics of life. Sometimes just being grateful for the things that we have around, but when I say step back, sometimes just sitting with yourself, whether it's something like, I'm just gonna sit here today, I'm gonna listen to some good old jazz, right? Or, oh, it's raining, as he said today, I'm gonna listen to it tap down on the roof.
And
right?
it doesn't have to cost anything,
No.
right? Because sometimes people think of taking care of oneself, and this term that we've used,
I know.
so often, right? Self-care. It's not about going to get a manicure
It's
or
not.
pedicure or things like that. Sometimes it
It
may
is,
be,
yeah.
but it's often like, do I need rest? Do I need to
Yes.
sleep? Do I need to maybe schedule a little bit less?
That is an excellent one right there, because I know for me, I'm a multitasker times 1,000.
Which doesn't always
No,
work, and it does
not.
can backfire.
And I know better.
Yes.
So knowing sometimes that today I just need to accomplish 3 things and I can rest. You know what, today I'm gonna stay in the bed, I'm gonna change my pajamas, I'm gonna rest, I'm gonna sleep, I'm gonna have some tea, but I don't have to accomplish everything on the list, and it doesn't have to be 20 things. I am greater than my productivity. So realizing that is a great way for occupational trauma to say, you know what, I don't have to be everyone's savior. Today, I just need to save myself.
Exactly. And so also, the other thing too is how can we look after, our friends, our neighbors? I mean, you mentioned obviously that critical step of asking, how are you,
Yes.
which we do often forget, right?
We often forget, but I think also, let's just be honest, people who typically are in the business of caring for other people are not always honest when they need help. They don't reach out because they feel like, you know what, I'm always on the other end of helping. So really being aware of those around you. So, I'm noticing some things different. Or even if you're not, just saying, you know what, how are you doing? Is there anything I could do to help make your day smoother? You know what, I appreciate the work that you do. Those are small, small things that go such a long way for a person who's constantly giving of themselves,
Sure.
Who almost wear this superhero cape. And in all actuality, they're human just like the rest of us.
They sure are.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, that we talk often a lot about burnout when it comes to this topic.
Yes.
Is burnout preventable? Can you do certain things to kind of protect yourself and those around you from it? Or is it often too late when we realize we're burnt out?
I think sometimes with burnout, we don't realize we're burned out until it shows up. Mm-hmm. But I think if we become more self-aware, by taking the time to step back, we can realize when we're at that breaking point and doing things like maybe having a little state vacation at home where I'm not going to get involved in a lot of things at work. I'm just going to take some time off, a couple days just to kind of do simple things around the house, whether it's I like planting my plants or looking at my garden or watering my flowers or this time of year going for a nice brisk walk. Or guess what? Doing nothing.
Doing nothing
is okay.
These are such great reminders, especially as we head into Election Day tomorrow and beyond with the holiday season.
No.
It's a difficult time of year for so many people.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Always.
Great advice as always. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.